Daytona.
Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, and as the theme music may suggest, today is Daytona Day in the middle of the pack Racing League Cruising USA GR86 Championship for 2023. It is round 12 of 12 and we are here in the state of Florida, albeit the sunshine has gone away and it is night time for the Daytona International Speedway, and what better place to bring the championship to a close than the venerable tarmac that has seen motor racing take place here for the best part of 60 plus years, with the extended oval and of course the road layout where we've seen our drivers take to the latter today, and it is going to be a combination of both the infield and the oval banking which will see our drivers put through their paces for the final time. Indeed, many a championship still to be decided, particularly in the overall AM Class Drivers Championship and also the Teams Championship, and we also do have to keep in mind all three of the Southern State Cups in the Pro, the Prime and the AM Class are yet to be resolved, so there's plenty to look forward to here today and it is going to be an absolute thriller, there's no question about it. But as for our times in British Summer Time, that's BST, or Universal Coordinated Time +1 at UTC +1, while schedule for today is as follows. In just under 13 minutes time, we'll be heading to the grid for our final feature race, 45 minutes in duration, all of our drivers full attack, albeit will they need to perhaps balance the throttle a little bit and manage their fuel, because there is going to be a mandatory pit stop, and perhaps it's not wise to go all in and charging, much like as if this race were a sprint. We'll have to wait and see who plays the right cards and who picks the right pace as they make their way around in the race. And we should point out the racing you're seeing on screen is actually not live, but this is a post-round broadcast for your viewing pleasure. The racing itself occurred as it was early this week, back on Wednesday the 12th of April, but we're bringing it to you as if it were live this fine Sunday, the 16th of April 2023. In the quarantine booth you have myself, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and I'll be bringing you all your racing action today, and indeed you can tune in live via two media platforms for your viewing pleasure. Firstly on YouTube, you can go to youtube.com and search for TX141TX or Paul Walsh. Alternatively, if you're a Twitch user, you can tune in live via Twitch on twitch.tv/TX11, and we can see both chats, they are available to us, so don't be shy, feel free to say hi in either of the chats and let us know how you're doing and what you're excited for in this race. Indeed, we always ask, of course, if you were one of the participants in this race, alternatively you do know the outcome, that you avoid giving away any potential spoilers in the chat for the guys and girls tuning at home who may be uninitiated. And I can tell you, as your host and commentator, I've done everything in my power to avoid any potential spoilers in both the pre-practice session and also the race itself, so therefore I'm going into this one blind, and that's why it's going to be as close as possible to the raw live experience. But indeed, now we look to our calendar, and the story has been long, it has been intense. We've come all the way to the very end of our calendar. We started off all the way back on the 11th of January with the Big State Cup open up as a celebration of the largest states in the United States of America. It was Watkins Glen in the state of New York for round number 1. And on the 18th of January, we made our way to the state of California for a doubleheader in rounds 2 and 3. Started off at Laguna Seca, the WeatherTech Raceway, and then making our way to downtown Long Beach on the 25th of January for round 3. In round 4, we wrapped up the Big State Cup at the Circuit of the Americas in the state of Texas for our first feature of 3 on the 1st of February. We took a mid-season break, then we made our way back for the Midwest Cup, the second of our 3 cups, and that was rounds 5 to 8. Started off at Indianapolis in the state of Indiana back on the 15th of February. Then we made our way to the state of Ohio for Mid-Ohio Motorsports Park on the 22nd of February, and then we had our 3rd sprint in the Midwest Cup, Belle Isle in the city of Detroit in the state of Michigan, and that was the sprint on the 1st of March, and then we wrapped up the Midwest Cup at Road America in the state of Wisconsin at the picturesque circuit near Elkhart Lake on the 8th of March, and well, what a race it was at Road America, particularly in the Pro-Am class drama all the way to the final corner. And then, of course, we had a mid-season break, the second of our 2 mid-season breaks, and we started off the Southern State Cup. That was started off with round number 9 at Road Atlanta in the state of Georgia, particularly at the Brazelton Town Circuit on the 22nd of March. And then we made our way from the roller coaster of Road Racing 2 at Barber Motorsports Park in the state of Alabama on the 29th of March, where we got to see many a driver enjoy the wide open road surface there and battle hard through the complex in round 10. And now our previous round, the penultimate round, was round number 11 last week, and that was of course the sprint at Sebring, the first of 2 rounds in the state of Florida, and that was on the 5th of April, and today is the conclusion at Daytona, of course. As we look to our standings then, let's give you a quick recap of how everything stands going into tonight. Started off with the Pro class overall. And we can see here that Jason Landry is your champion with a round to spare of 449 points. He cannot be caught by Aaron Law or any of his other competitors. Meanwhile, in the battle for P2, it's between Aaron Law and Francois Shink, and it's only 2 points between the pair. And that's going to be the ultimate focus point today in the Pro class. Which of the two will be coming home the runner-up? Aaron Law has proven to be very consistent, and his pace has been gradually grown over the course of the second half of the season. Meanwhile, Francois Shink has absolutely exploded onto our screens in the last 5 rounds and really built up that pace in the second half of the season. So both drivers are major contenders. Indeed, either one could have walked away with it. In P4, Jordan Butler on 323 points, ahead of Carl Ranieri and Tanner Dibble by 6 points between the two of them, albeit Ranieri ahead of Dibble based on result countback. And then it's James Decar, James Logston, Jerome Bajulas and Mika Hendricks who wrap up the top 10, with John Lals on best of the rest there in P11 on 206 points, ahead of Matteo Giorgio on 76. We then come to the Pro-Am class, and here the complexion is similar in a way, in that Logan McKenzie in P1 there on 396 points due to results. In terms of drop results, he cannot be caught by Alberto Alvarez come the end of tonight's racing, and therefore it does mean that Logan McKenzie is your Pro-Am overall champion for 2023 with a round to spare. Still, Alberto Alvarez will not want McKenzie to run away with things tonight. Indeed, Alvarez picking up the win last time out, and all the efforts going in considerably into each and every round, and finally finding a way ahead of McKenzie. And for Alvarez, it is going to be business as usual, and he'll look to make it a win to end his championship campaign. Samuel Cran, meanwhile, only 6 points clear of Edwin Offer in P4, with Cran in P3. It means that the battle for P3 is on, and let's not count out Donald Sepek in P5 on 253 points. Indeed, he's looking for an opportunity to try and close that 11-point deficit. Next, Kirk Lane in P6 on 244, 2 clear of Jonathan Ballard, with Ilya Speaker, Milan Harris, Jay DeVries completed the top 10. Best of the rest, John Crew on 77 points, and then Carlos Hathcock on 16 points completed the standings, with Jermaine Warren, John Wilding and Zach Saunders yet to get any points on the board. We then come to the M class meanwhile, and here we can see at the very top, it's 6 points between Samuel Bernardi, your championship leader, and Fernando Takahashi, your second place driver going into tonight. Bernardi has the advantage because, of course, drop scores come into effect, and that means that Fernando Takahashi can only improve based on previous scores, and both drivers have about the same amount of points they can potentially improve upon. And that means that if Bernardi takes the win tonight, or indeed finishes ahead of Takahashi, he's guaranteed to take the class win. However, Takahashi beats Bernardi, he'll need to beat him by a good number of places. We'll need to check our notes to get all the precise permutations, but Takahashi's got to go for gold today and hope that Bernardi drops it along the way. Mark Senegal, meanwhile, finding himself in a battle for P3, albeit with a 9-point advantage over Dan Vitchuk, with Ian Hennery P5 on 228 points, and it's Jack Davis, Glenn Bratton, Billman DaCosta, Nick Bader, and August Blondell wrapping up the top 10, with best of the rest there only 2 points behind Avon Dorsey in P11, 20 points clear of Roger Ganesh. We then have Dylan Valinga, who completed the run to P13, with Ines Yusuf and PG Christensen P14 and P15, and it's Dan Ocaranza, Spencer Cockane, Dave Hernandez, Albert Brown, and Jordan Hooks who complete your AM class overall drivers championship standings. But then we look to the teams championship, and here we can see that Sunday GT Turtles, they're not quite crowned champions just yet, in the fact that it is possible for Team Bear Poke to win the championship. So should Sunday GT Turtles drop all their points today, indeed have an absolute disaster of the day. But the thing is, of course, Team Bear Poke will need Lady Luck to be very much on their side, and well, Lady Luck is a temperamental thing, of course, in motorsport. But meanwhile, whilst the top two are relatively safe in their positions, it should finish as is. DNA Motorsports are battling for P3 with Beaver Buzz Energy, 4 points between the two of them, and that is going to be the big focal point in the team's championship, with middle of the pack Jedi in P5 there, looking to hold on to their top 5 placement ahead of Bear Pope Zero and Rockefeller Racing White, who equal 546 points. It will come down to a rivalry for P6. Pan Am Racing in P8 on 415. Or ahead of Rockefeller Racing Pink there, where the best spot boys 8 points, and middle of the pack Sif complete the top 10 with best of Hassholes Racing, and in Reverse Grid Racing completed the stands on 167 and looking to leapfrog Hassholes come the end of tonight. But then we come onto our Cup Championship stands for the Southern State Cup, and here the complexion is a little bit different, in that Jason Landry is leading the way with an advantage of 32 points over Francois Shink, and Carl Ranieri a further 4 points behind. Landry is arguably the favourite here, but all points are going to be critical, as should he drop the result today, well, it could lead Francois Shink to an unexpected championship win. Carl Ranieri will be looking to do the same, of course, with Jordan Butler on 106 points, also an outside of that championship crown, but more focused most likely in trying to take the fight to Shink and Ranieri to come home the runner-up. We then have in P5 James Decar at 83 points, 2 clear of Tanner Dibble, and the two of them very close together in this battle for P5, ahead of Jerome Bajulas, Aaron Law, James Logston, and Mika Hendricks, who completes the top 10, and then, of course, not competing any rounds so far in this cup, John Lauzon and Matteo Giorgio. We then come on to the Pro-Am class for the Southern States Cup, and we can see here Milan Harris leading the way by 14 points over Alberto Alvarez, and it is my understanding, ladies and gentlemen, it's been brought to my attention that Milan Harris not in attendance for this round, so Alberto Alvarez right now has an open goal in order to try and shoot his way to the top of the standings. All he needs to do is bring on home a good result, and he'll find himself crowned your Southern States Cup champion. How Jada Reeves will look to try and put a stop to that, indeed Logan McKenzie as well, albeit they're a sizable push off of Alvarez, so it does look as though the door's open to the Pan Am Racing driver. Instead, the reason McKenzie will be looking for that battle for P3, and in return, it'll be a Donald Cepek in P5 on 85 points, who'll look to try and keep Daniel Cram behind, a 4 points gap between the two of them, with further 4 points to John Krug, and Edward Offer, Ilya Speaker, and Jonathan Ballard not too far behind, but Sidney Speaker and Onofre are looking to try and hunt down that P5 position as well, and Ballard potentially a little bit of an outsider, but could be an actor who is able to interfere. Outside the top 10, Kirk Lane best the rest on 52 points in their battle for a top 10 place with Jonathan Ballard, with Carlos Hathcock, Jermaine Warren, John Wilding and Zach Saunders yet to compete in a round of the Southern States Cup. We then come to the AM class meanwhile, and here the complexion is rather similar. Samuel Bernardi leads the way on 97 points ahead of Dan Vitchett by 12 points there, who sits on 85 points. The battle between the two of them rages on. Both drivers in attendance today, and Bernardi will be hoping that he's able to stay one step ahead of Vitchett in order to bring on home the Southern States Cup. Meanwhile, by comparison, Ian Henneberry, EMP3 on 72 points. He's one clear of Dean Bellinger, and Bellinger, of course, only joined us recently as of the Southern States Cup, and where he's definitely made himself felt in the class so far, and can he potentially bring on home a top 3 finish? That'll be the big challenge. But with DaCosta and Mark Sigal both on 67 points, and it's DaCosta ahead of Senegal based on result countback, and their battle for P5 rages on. They could be trying to take the fight to Dylan Bellinger and Ian Henneberry as well in the hunt for P3, before we have Glenn Bratton only a further point behind, Fernando Takahashi in P8 on 60 points, and then Jack Davis and Avon Dorsey completed the top 10, and it's amazing to see how the top 10 of the AM class separated by a margin there of what is 43 points, but indeed anybody from what is Ian Henneberry down to Avon Dorsey could be finishing P3 today in the Southern States Cup. Augusta Blondor on 26 points in P11, best of the rest. Head of Nick Bade on 22 points there in P12. We have Jordan Hooks completing the standings with Albert Brad, Christopher Tarango, Dan Ocaranza, Dave Hernandez, Edis Usul, and Matt Underkoffler not scoring any points so far in the Southern States Cup. But let's come from our cups then to our circuit for today. We conclude it all at Daytona Beach in Volusia County in Florida in the United States of America. It's the Daytona International Speedway's road course layout, as you can see from the circuit map provided to us by iRacing.com. Thank you to them, of course, for their wonderful circuit maps. Indeed, their absolutely brilliant simulator. And consistent of 12 official corners, this circuit is a mixture of the best parts of Daytona's infield and outfield layouts. Of course, the outfield also being another name for the oval. For as our drivers make their way across the start-finish line down towards turn number 1. It's the extended heavy braking zone as they come into the opening hairpin and sweep their way through the left-hander. Once doing so, they'll be flat out through at the kinks of turns 2 and 3 before breaking their way into the horseshoe hairpin at turn number 4, while the slowest corners on the circuit as they make their way through the right-hander, they look to get back to full throttle as soon as possible to carry the speed through the kink of 5 and break their way to the second hairpin at turn number 6. They're a little bit more of an open apex by comparison with turn number 4, but still our drivers will need to be smart on the brakes and make sure to defend well, and as they exit on out, they'll head up towards turn number 7 for the right-angled left-hand corner to make their way back onto the first oval bank. As they come onto turn number 8, it'll be flat out all the way round, and that's where we're going to see plenty of slipstream train action as they head down towards the bus stop chicane at turns 9, 10 and 11, and it's going to be left, right, right, left as they make their way through the chicane and power their way onto the second oval bank at turn number 12 to head to the start-finish line. And well, we saw it the season opener at Watkins Glen in New York. It was almost as if it was Toyota GR86's meets NASCAR, and I think we're going to see plenty more of that today because the slipstream around here is going to be absolutely pivotal if managed well to success in terms of race strategy with fuel saving and also knowing when to pounce on the final lap if you are in a pack. But before we go racing, of course, let's give you a quick reminder of our rules. In terms of setup, drivers are running the fixed setup as provided by the Middle of the Pack Racing League, and car fuel loads will be restricted to 35 litres. Well, that does mean the feature race then. Well, the race will start by a grid start, as is the norm for this series, and each driver shall have 2 fast repairs available. They should receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 18 or more instant points, and should there be a major incident during the first 30 minutes of the race, a safety car may be deployed at the discretion of our race director, and the safety car may not be deployed after that, and the safety car may be deployed twice if needed in those 30 minutes. And we should also point out with those 35 litres of the fuel tank, that will mandate a pit stop for fuel, but changing tyres is entirely optional. But that's enough rules, regulation, everything between. But I know what you're all here for, ladies and gentlemen. You're here for the racing. And as we do take a look back to our pictures here and our drivers making the way on around, well, we do look to Jason Landry heading on through into the infield at the moment. And of course, your Pro Championship winner overall, but still looking to bring on home the Southern State Cup in the Pro class today, and it is going to be a colossal challenge facing him, but he has been the man to beat all season, and therefore I think his confidence levels will be high. But as we say hello there to Miss Kitty Louise 90 in the Twitch chat. And indeed, how is it the end of the championship already? Miss Kitty Louise asks. Well, it beats me. The time has absolutely flown on, boy. 12 weeks of racing, or 14 if you include the 2 mid-season breaks, and we are here. And I can tell you one thing, ladies and gents, we're going into tonight, up and down the paddock, when the drivers were talking about the fact that this is the final round of the season, they were all absolutely gobsmacked to the simple fact they could not believe the time had passed so rapidly and how much enjoyment they've all had in the Toyota Gazoo Racing 86 machine. And indeed, the Cup car has absolutely delivered time and time again, and well, you can imagine for all our drivers, they'll be thinking about the fact that whilst it may be coming to an end right now, as we see there a little bit of an instant involvement, Edwin off there. In fact, that's not Edwin off there, that's Amika Hendricks, and what is also John Lauzon and Jack Davies picking up the arrears there in the Rockefeller Racing white car. I think just having a little bit of fun and shenanigans before they get underway, or they just cannot believe it's over, and a number of drivers are already saying when is going to be a season 2 of this championship. And well, we'll talk a little bit more about upcoming series hosted by Middle of the Pack Racing League at the end of today's broadcast, as Adam J. Ballard makes his way all the way on ground on the second bank here at turn number 12. The thing he'll be focusing down right now is just nailing at the start of his race, because of course, in terms of how our drivers will line up on the grid, they will not be lining up via a qualifying session. We do not do qualifying for the purposes of our feature race rounds. Instead, it will be a championship order reverse grid, with the Pro class starting ahead of the Pro class and the Pro class starting ahead of the AM class. So that means going into tonight, it will be based on the overall championship, not the Southern States Cup Championship, and there will be, for example, Jason Landry, who starts right at the back in the Pro class in the first pack, as we see Adam Ballard getting a little bit wrong there into turn number 1 and catching the car into the barrier, and he'll be thinking, okay, don't make a mistake in the race, because that would prove absolutely fatal for his racing aspirations in terms of getting to the end and bringing home major points. But Fernando Takahashi, of course, the middle of the pack Jedi driver, well, he's going to be thinking about one thing: he needs to beat Bernardi, and that is going to be a change of itself, because the two of them have been absolutely equal over the course of this season, with Bernardi just edging out Takahashi in the early stages in the Big State Cup, and that's where the delta has been between the two, but otherwise they've been night inseparable all the way on through. And well, for Takahashi, can he make it one last blast in the 223 machine and find a way to undermine and take home the AM crown? We're going to find out all that more very shortly, ladies and gentlemen, because the checker flag has come out of this final practice session, and our drivers are now being told they need to make their way into the pits, or they'll be moved to the pits very shortly. Indeed, we're now only moments away from setting the grid. Well, as the grid is set, we can't quite walk you through it, unfortunately, due to limitations of the iRacing replay file, but what we can do is see our drivers start to make their way onto the grid, and well, it is going to be an absolutely packed grid, there's no doubt about it. Of course, championship leaders will be starting from the back of the respective classes, so we will see Bernardi and also Takahashi at the back of the AM class, and here we can see them, they're starting to line up with Takahashi just behind Mark Senegal, and the 227 driver Mark Senegal will be feeling as though there's a little bit of pressure on him to do well today, because he'll want to finish inside the top 3 in the AM class when all is said and done. But most our drivers already on the grid. There is James Logston, he's midway up towards the front in the Pro class, and well, as they all continue to flip their way onto the grid, we've only got a couple more drivers to go, and well, John Lauzon for Beaver Buzz Energy there, waiting at rear-end on the all set with Mika Hendricks alongside him, albeit from a little bit back, as all the drives start on the oval bank, and they have been told that for the purposes of racing, they are not permitted to go below the yellow lines, i.e. the double yellow line that you see there to the left of John Lauzon's car from the driver's perspective, until the final lap. Well, here we go then, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for 45 minutes of racing action. We await the lights. And it's lights out and away we go for the final race of the season, the Cruising USA GR86 Championship for 2023. Lauzon gets a good start in the run down towards turn number 1. James Logston, meanwhile, goes immediately on the attack as they come into the opening braking zone here. Hendricks on the left of your picture, around the outside is Tanner Dibble. They make the way under braking here. Dibble tries to go all the way round. There's going to be dirt and dust there on the outside. That's going to cause him a slide a little bit, but as he emerges, you can see a further behind. We have got Jason Landry immediately going on the charge, passing on the inside there of what is James' car. Car's going to look for the run into the inside now, into the horseshoe, hairpin onto the brakes he goes, and as he comes on through, he can't quite find it. Meanwhile, further back in the Pro class, we've got Ilya Speaker here, who's had a reasonable start and makes his way out to turn number 4. The leader of the Pro class, header Logan McKinsey, with the Rockefeller Racing pink driver doing everything he can right now to keep the momentum as they all make the way up towards the turn 5 kick. Now rolling the way on down. Samuel Grand, meanwhile, having a bit of a slow start by comparison to the Pro Class, dropping behind Mark Senegal. And Mark Senegal absolutely flying off the line. The AM Class. Grand looks back to the inside here. He wants to go hunting after his peers. You can understand why. He doesn't want an AM trying to obscure him as they make the way out to turn number 6. Meanwhile, behind that's Takahashi going up the inside of Dan Mitchell. And Takahashi having a phenomenal start as well as he's moved up multiple places. In fact, he jumped to P2 from what was at the time P8 on the starting grid as they come through the left-hander at turn at number 6 and onto the bank they go. But as they do turn 7, in fact, onto turn 8 they go now. It's going to be side-by-side initially. And someone's going to have to give way here, and I think Takahashi might start to feel he's losing a little bit of speed as they make the way to the slipstream train. And of course, this is where you'll see the straight line speed differential of a car that's in the draft versus a car that's not in the draft gradually start to make itself known as they make the way all the way around. Meanwhile, at the head of the pack here, John Lauzon at the very front of the field, your race leader and pro leader. He's only a 10th ahead of James Logston at the moment. They all concertina together, and as they emerge from the bus stop chicane, will they all survive it this time around? Of course, a very tricky chicane. It can catch out the very best of drivers, given the fact you've got multiple curves and also small indentations in the road surface. But as they make the way on around here, no change at the moment. John Lauzon leading as he comes towards the end of the first lap, albeit it's a very long run towards the timer line here. And of course, he won't be worried about it too much now. But when they come around on that final lap, whoever's lead is definitely going to be very self-conscious of the fact they are all alone. They haven't got toe. Meanwhile, everybody else behind will be sniffing the toe by comparison. But as they head to the timeline after one lap, it's Mika Hendricks who leads by an inch as they head across the line. Meanwhile, alongside him, John Lauzon, the 2P Buzz Energy T-Rex, trying to make it too wide into turn 1 once again. As they come through, Hendricks goes all the way round, and Tanner Dibble tries to follow suit as well as Jason Landry looks to try and make it 2 all the way through. And as they head up towards turns 2 and 3, Landry with the left of your picture there, he's obscured a little bit by Tanner Dibble, but the key point here is he's trying to make his way through. But Dibble there says no, holds him in place. It's going to be James Logston on the outside there versus Landry. Meanwhile, Dibble, who's the centre camera, goes up the inside of John Lauzon and takes P2. As they exit out the corner now, Landry looks at the cutback here out of Horseshoe, and as they make the way out towards turn number 6 behind him, he's got Jordan Butler as the DNA Motorsports team operates Dibble and Butler trying to make a bit of momentum. Meanwhile, in the Pro class, we've got here where's Ilya Speaker now starting to go nip and tuck with James Carr for the Pro class, but look at Logan McKenzie. McKenzie has come out of left field and goes up the inside here, and the privateer in the number 104 car, well, Alvarez is tucked in behind, but of course Alberto Alvarez may be taking it a bit slow and steady in order to try and save some fuel. And that's the thing also in these races, as well as trying to stay in the pack, you also want to save as much fuel as possible, and you don't want to lose the pack in front. But we'll dissect all that very shortly and put it into layman's terms for you. But meanwhile, as we look back up towards the front of the field, it's now Logston side by side with John Lauzon, and well, as they make the way down towards the bus stop chicane this time, we can see Landry also taking a look, but can't quite find it. Lauzon being allowed to slot back in. Everyone being quite processional at the moment and calm with one another. But I can tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen, they're having to essentially balance a NASCAR nuance with also their inner road racing spirit as they make the way around. We can see an amp pack already that's fallen back a little bit. Bill with DaCosta here tucked in by Glenn Bratton with Samuel Cran at the head of the group. They're battling for P22 overall. I think Cran's going to take a look up the inside here, and DaCosta as they make the way down. In fact, that's going to be on Bratty's on the outside, apologies. And as they come into turns 9 and 10, 2 wide they go in. Cran backs off and takes the grass. We've got a car around, and that's Jack Davis who's managed to find himself pointed the wrong way. And I think there might be a little bit more to that that meets the eye, but we can't get you a replay of that, unfortunately. But as he brings himself back together, it's a collapsed front right suspension. I think for Jack Davis, he's going to try and limp to the pit lane, get the car repaired. And Dylan Valinga's been an instant as well, because he's in the pit lane at the moment. He's just leaving it and heading on towards his second lap under race conditions, but he's a long way down. As our drivers come across the timeline this time, 3 wide at the front of the field, and it's going to be Big Hendricks who leads the trio of Landry, Dibble and Logston as they all go in. There's a small tap there between Landry and Logston's car. Landry goes a bit deep as a result, no malice intended, but going 3 wide on the outside is dangerous at the best of the times. He's a risk taker as Jason Landry. I think he feels as though the risk of winning the championship's gone, so he doesn't need to worry about the risks anymore. The rewards could be there for making one of the passes of the season. Couldn't quite pull it off that time, but meanwhile John Butler looking out around the outside, he can't quite find it. But as we look back here to Edward Offred, battling side by side with Adam Ballard as he heads up towards turn at number 6. We jump on board with the 109 MOP Jedi car as it tucks into the draft of Logan McKenzie. Now heading down towards the braking zone for turn at number 6, all the way he goes behind the Tide machine. James Carr goes a little bit deep there. McKenzie definitely put a lot of pressure on versus Offred as they come through turn at number 6 and up towards 7 they roar. And in fact that pressure extended to James Carr, and Offred really been made to work hard in order to try and gain the place. McKinsey may well put himself in the right place, and Offred looks up the inside into turn 7, has to back it off completely. He loses a bit of the run there as we've got a car going slowly on the inside. That is Francois Shink, who's lost out considerably, but he tucks back into the pack. But meanwhile, on Offred's right hand side, we have got Adam Ballard, who's going side by side all the way round as they power their way down towards the bus stop chicane here. Well, it's going to be... Now that's Alvarez on the outside, I believe. Yes, that is Alvarez. We confirm that. In fact, Ballard's a little bit further behind them as they make the way of through and charge the way down. Ballard's going to take a look to the inside. Meanwhile, Alvarez is just going to go higher on the outside as they make the way onto the flat. And an offer here giving the toe to both drivers, playing a bit of a political game here in terms of offering the slipstream to the pair as they made the way into turns 9, 10, and 11 and coming on out. Well, we had the first 5 minutes of this race complete. Everybody so far keeping it relatively clean and now starting to settle down a little bit, albeit I think this man Alberto Alvarez in the Pan Am Racing Machine, the 167, and will be thinking about getting a little bit closer to Logan McKinsey, as I don't think you want to lose sight of the fact that right now he is potentially the man on a mission to win what is the Southern State Cup of the Pro-Am class, so long as he brings home a good result. P4 will be enough of the Pro-Am class as we're to understand it. Of course, all drivers gain points based on overall position, not class finishing position, so it would be a P12 finish and it should be sufficient, but he'll want to get a couple more places before this is over to give himself confidence. But meanwhile behind we see Dan Bishop battling with Samuel Bernardi as they make their way down towards turn number 1. It's going to be Victor on the inside, Bernardi on the outside. And Victor going all in, but Bernardi going even deep on that outside line. Catches the car, but it's too late. Bernardi loses out there by going as deep as he possibly can on the outside line, and all the dirt and dust there on that outside line just catch him out, much like Jason Landry earlier when he attempted the 3 wide into turn 1 on the previous lap. But damage it right now, putting up his defensive prowess, and Fernando Takahashi goes round, he loses the rear of the car, and this is critical in the AM Championship. Well, can he get it turned around? He gets the car restarted, but Fernando Takahashi, who was in P2 and looking strong in the AM class now, drops the back of it as he waits to rejoin. He gets the car started once again, but for Fernando Takahashi, it's disaster coming out of the horseshoe hairpin at turn number 4, and Samuel Bernardi right now, he'll see that. I think he'll be told by the team principal, don't get ecstatic just yet, but just keep in mind now, you're currently on course for winning the AM Drivers' Championship overall if things finish as they currently stand. But you can imagine that Takahashi will be going all in to try and close up as soon as possible, but it is a long way for Takahashi to recover now. It's 14 seconds of recovery, and that is a lot of time, and also the field is now starting to break open. So as the field make the way down towards the bus stop chicane this time around, of course, earlier on we were talking about the fact there was a bit of aggression between our drivers, but also they're having to start to make the way to a little bit of processional nature, and also worry about the fuel saving and the draft. So let's take you through what exactly is going to be happening at this point of the race. Of course, we've had the opening 8 minutes, we've had what will be by the end of this lap the opening 4 laps, and drivers have initially been battling quite hard to get themselves into their preferred positions, but now this race takes a very different time. We said earlier this race is going to be heavily focused on slipstream, and what that means is drivers want to be behind another car and gain in the draft or the toe of the car in front. Essentially the car in front punches a nice hole in the air and the car behind gains a speed boost on the straights as a result of it. But the thing is as well, that also means you can do some fuel saving if you are the car that is behind, because when you're in the toe you gain a bit of speed. If you lift off the throttle, it balances your speed out, and therefore you can save a little bit of fuel because you're not pushing the throttle as hard, and also you can short shift if you're in the toe. Put the 2 and 2 together, every little bit of fuel saving you do, it means you save a bit of time in the pits, and that's what our drivers will be thinking of here. And of course, as they make their way to turn 1, well, they're not thinking about it quite now as Loxton looks around the outside, but the temperament and the tempo will turn to fuel saving as time goes on, because every second you gain in the pit lane could be critical, but you always want to stay in the pack here to be able to do fuel saving on circuit, and that's where the NASCAR nature of this racing comes in, as Dibble leads this race now. Logston back on the inside here versus Mika Hendricks, and we say hello to Eric Logston in the YouTube chat there who says let's go racing, and indeed they are absolutely going hunting here. We've got plenty of time still to go as Logston side by side with Hendricks, and both drivers showing no signs of wanting to let go of P2 just yet. Logston on the inside here, Hendricks on the outside going as late as he can on the brakes. James Logston looks all the way and Hendricks has to give him the space, and as they do, well, Dibble's going to be given a bit of breathing room. But I think the big question is, of course, how much gap does Dibble need to break the toe of the drivers behind? He'll need a gap of at least 2 seconds for there to be no distant toe fell, and Hendricks on the return move on the inside into turn 7. This is brilliant racing, but I wonder how much time Dibble's going to have on the exit. It's going to be a second, it's not enough. They will close back up to Dibble very gradually, but I think Dibble will be conscious of the fact if he can keep up this pace, the two behind battle this hard, essentially he'll be able to break away with the race lead, and everybody else will then have to try and gain on him by working together. And it seems to be one of the things that they're not wanting to do too much right now as they make the way on around. Meanwhile, we can see Jordan Butler get ahead of John Lauzon there in the Pro Pack of the battle for his P6. albeit I think it was a little bit more indecisive to me to you as they come on down towards the bus stop chicane. Lauser looks to the inside there to try and bleed off a little bit of the speed. We are behind Alberto Alvarez tucking in, and we can see it's getting very nip and tuck for James Carr, who's falling more and more into the clutch of the Brian pack here as the pro driver. He's dropped down to P12, but he finds himself now with Edward Offer in front of him, Adam Ballard behind him, and as he heads high there, he's going to be letting Ballard go through on the low line, and in return I think he'll just drop back in. I would imagine that James Carr here, he'll be looking ahead and feeling as though if the lead pack is only 3 to 4 seconds in front of him, which it is currently 3.5 seconds, if that gap stays the same, he doesn't have to worry too much, because he could save up to about 4 seconds worth of refueling time in the pits, and then he could get the jump back into that pack when he exits the pit lane. Now of course choosing when to pit is going to be critical as well. We'll come to that very shortly as we will focus on Lauzon battling with Alvarez as Alvarez looks up the inside. Meanwhile going all the way around the outside, Jordan Butler, he's trying to do what many have failed to do, but Butler finds it for DNA Motorsports. He keeps it on circuit, and as they come out of turn 1 into 2, 3 they go side by side this time with it's Francois Shink. He's made the move, stick there as Butler around the outside of Lauzon Alvarez. Beautiful move, and as he tucks in, he's going even more here as Butler looks up the inside now of Shink, but he loses the rear of the car on rotation on the apex and catches it just in time. I think that's a similar story as we've got a car around there. That's Dylan Valinka who's gone around. Very unfortunate for the P25 drivers. He drops a lap down, but meanwhile in all of this is now becoming 2 to 3 wide as they all make the way up towards turn number 6. I think Butler with that slow exit out of turn 4 has just caused the field to stockade slightly as they make the way into the right-hander in turn 6, and well, Ilias Speaker here on the inside versus Alvarez, and Alvarez now ahead of most of his peers, albeit he'll be at the head of the pack, and he'll be trying to latch onto the back of John Lauzon as he goes side by side with Speaker into turn number 7. A nice move there by what is Alvarez on Speaker, and meanwhile behind Logan McKenzie goes a bit deep, almost off circuit, but just about catches the car as he powers his way back onto the first oval bank. But through turn number 7 and 8 he goes as he makes his way down towards the bus stop at 9, 10 and 11. Well, further back in the AM class, things have started to really calm down by comparison as we look back to your AM class leader here, Mark Senegal P15 for Sunday GT Turtles, not quite able to latch on to the top 14 pack at the moment, but he's broken clearly away at P16 and behind with Jordan Butler 5.6 seconds back, and you can see that Senegal is gradually gaining in the tow on De Vries, and therefore he's able to pull away from the rest. Meanwhile Samuel Bernardi P2 in the AM class, P17 overall, he's tucked in behind Butler, and I think he's trying to catch as much as he can. But the middle of the pack Sif driver right now, all he'll be thinking about is the fact if things finish as they are, he'll be your Southern State Cup champion in the AM class and also your overall AM drivers champion for this series, given the fact that Fernando Takahashi is quite a way back. And speaking of Fernando Takahashi, on the outside there versus Samuel Cram battling side by side into the bus stop. It's going to be close between the two of them. Neither one wants to give way. Well, Takahashi gets the better run initially, but now as they make the way back onto the oval banking, I think Karan's going to be thinking about letting Takahashi slot in behind. Indeed, Takahashi now with the opportunity to do exactly that as they make the way towards the end of the lap. But meanwhile, as we look back to leaders here, it's 2 wide by 2 as they head into turn 1. It's Big Hendricks tucked in behind Tanner Dibble, as in fact Jason Landry on the inside there moves up to P2. As they head down towards Horseshoe, onto the brakes they'll go for the hairpin, and will Dibble holding the lead and comfortably hold it as they make the way on around. We ride aboard the gearbox here, looking back from the DNA Motorsport 69 machine, and will Jason Landry get it ever close? He makes his way towards our camera and almost takes the camera off the back of the car, hence why we have to cut away. And as they make the way up towards turn number 6 here, will Tanner Dibble holding firm as they come on down onto the brakes and not having to worry too much about the fin. I think Jason Landry really keen to work with Dibble at this point in order to save fuel, and it's everybody else behind who just needs to try and settle one down, or at least that's the opinion I think Landry will have. Meanwhile, Hendricks, Logston, Shink and Lauzon may have other ideas as they head into turn 7 again. Meanwhile, as they come on through, we've had an off track for Ilias Speaker, and in fact I believe Ilias Speaker has had to be towed to the pits immediately out of turn 4. It was a nasty knock to the wall, and the Rockefeller Racing Pink driver has had his race come to an abrupt halt for the meantime. Meanwhile, drivers who've gained as a result of this in terms of overall position, well, it's not quite the, well, in fact it will be the pack here. Aaron Law and also Jay De Vries behind as they head up towards the bus stop chicane again, and Aaron Law right now falling further and further back in that battle versus Francois Shink for P2 in the overall Pro Drivers Championship. As you can see, De Vries looking up the inside, and things finished as they are currently. Francois Shink would be your runner-up in the championship come the end, and Law would drop to P3 as they head into the bus stop chicane behind James Carr. Just watching, he's gradually brought himself back into this group. James Carr played it very tactically, but what was the top 14 pack is now dropping down to what is a top 13 pack, and the top 13 separated by 6 seconds, but all within slipstream range of one another. Then Mark Senegal 2.5 seconds back of the top 13 and no longer in the tow. But meanwhile, as we look back to your leaders here as they head towards the timeline, and indeed it's Tad Dibble who continuously being given a little bit of a love tap there, or a bump draft as we like to call it, from Mika Hendricks behind the Midwest Energy 73 car, giving him a move along as they make their way down towards turn number 1. Jason Landry on the low line, just covering it off nicely, and Landry I think taking a lot of comfort being on the low line on the inside into turn 1. Meanwhile, Francois Shink trying to go all the way round as Logston covers him off, and meanwhile Shink goes a little bit deep. That's going to give Lauzon the opportunity to cut on in. Meanwhile into the pit lane for their scheduled starts. Marcelo Bernardi from what was at the time P1 and P2 in the AM class. We'll have to wait and see where they coming out, but meanwhile Shink on the inside there allows on it to return. No, we've got a little bit of a loss of steering there from what is Mika Hendricks, a bit of oversteer creeping in. He catches the car for Midwest Energy, but that's going to take away some of the momentum. He'll drop in side by side with John Lauzon. The two teammates here will need to negotiate one another, and I think Hendricks let it go as meanwhile Alberto Alvarez comes on through as well, and your prime leader really right now in the midst of the pro leaders. He makes his way around with Edwin offering P2 in the prime class, and he's got Ballard and DeVries behind. As they come through turn number 6 and up towards 7 they go. Meanwhile, a little bit further back with Logan McKenzie's falling right to the back of the long line of drivers here inside the top 13. But I think McKenzie right now may be trying to do as much fuel saving as possible. He wants to do the leapfrog, and also very conscious of the fact that with the pack being so close at this time, he doesn't have to worry too much about losing out. Although we say that, I think he'll want to be a little bit closer to Alvarez, given the fact the gap between the two is 5 seconds at the moment, to give himself a bit more security as he makes way around and gaining more points. Albeit the private drivers' championship is his, but he'll want to try and get as close as possible to the top 5 and indeed the top 3 of the Pro Am Summer State Cup as he makes his way down towards the bus stop chicane. Aaron Lar meanwhile being hounded a little bit by James Carr, the two of them nose to tail, and as they battle for P11 behind the top 10 driver of Jay DeVries, will make their way into the chicane here, and both trying to stay as is as they make their way on through. Indeed, the car before the storm here as they come down and on towards the second oval back in turn number 12. And meanwhile, as we look from them back up to what is Jason Landry, well battling for the lead of this race at this time, and he's got James Logston behind it. Interestingly, the top 3 now, an 8 tenths of a second gap versus Francois Shink. That gap will come down by the time they get to turn number 1, but could this be a sign of the story that's now starting to unfold, where the top 3 trying to make an early break and see if they can move off into the distance? Well, as they head towards turn number 1 once again, Adam Ballard into the pit lane from P8 as the time he entered the pits, and as they come into turn 1 here, we see Dibble defending on the inside, Landry on the outside this time, just about hooks it up at the braking as they come through 2 and 3, which is going to be Logston now tucked his way through turns 2 into 3 onto the inside for the horseshoe hairpin. Shink in behind there in P4, and we're all 4 drivers here negotiating it well as they come on through, but again Shink jumping right back into that pack and not able to break away on the top 3, as Shink now moves into a top 3 position for the first time over the course of the last couple of laps, making his way up towards turn number 6. We can see Tanner Dibble on the inside there of John Lauzon, and Lauzon under braking here into turn number 6, and can he defend from Dibble or will he let it go? I think it's going to be the former, as Dibble's made to go outside to inside to turn number 7, albeit Dibble looking very close here and looking to try and gain a little bit more time in that run to P4. I mean, it's going to come back for the 69 driver as he gets it done quite nicely there, back on the inside, and doesn't lose too much time to Logston and Shink, who are P3 and P2 respectively, as they cover onto the oval bank. Meanwhile, behind Alberto Alvarez, side by side here with Mika Hendricks, with Jay DeVries now 4.7 seconds back. But do keep in mind, we've now got a bunch of pro drivers who have taken their scheduled stops, and therefore they've fallen out of the order, and the top 7 pack that is breaking away originally was the top 13 pack. So we are starting to see that breakaway of the top echelon of the field, and it is becoming more and more pronounced. Imagine the Tour de France, if you do enjoy it, cycling, and well, the marathon cycling there will be very similar in terms of these packs running together. Meanwhile, a bit further back here, we do have Aaron Lar, who is still chased after Jay DeVries, with Logan McKenzie behind him, James D. Carr falling further and further back. Edward off and chasing after what is Jordan Butler in the hunt for P12 as the 2 drivers make their way through the chicane, and as they come on through, well, they've still got 25 minutes of racing to go, and we'll still plenty of time to save fuel. And as we look to Francois Shink, well, he's tucking down the low line here, in behind Landry and Logston going on the outside, and as they power the way down the straight here and up towards what is turn number 1, it's going to be too wide all the way into turn 1 this time, and it's going to be Logston who's given a little bit of a push along here by Tanner Dibble. And what's interesting as well, notice how behind Landry, driver drivers are not necessarily wanting to try and give them a little bit of bump draft on that low line. It's on the high and outside line where the bump draft is really prevalent. And I think it's there just the fact going up the gradient and therefore wanting to carry as much speed as they can with the toe and the bump drafting mean on that low line. They don't have to contest as much of a gradient, but as they break the way into turn number 4, ladies and gentlemen, well, it's Landry who holds on to that lead ahead of Logsdon, but coming on through, John Lauzon. John Lauzon's gone round there at turn 4. Now, whether that was aided or under his own momentum, we're not quite sure of the story, but what we can tell you is as a result of that, he'll drop down to P11, and he'll be almost on the threshold of dropping outside the top 10 slipstream pack, and with that, and for John Lauzon, it's not a happy moment for the number 77 driver, and for Beaver Buzz Energy, it's all unfolded in the wrong way in very short notice. But as he comes into the right hand of the turn in number 6, he'll look to try and catch up to McKinsey and James Khan with the two of them fighting. That could give Lauzon a lifeline here. 1.5 seconds is the gap. He'll be able to take up a distant toe, and he may just be able to gain enough as they make the way to the oval bag. In fact, Lauzon gains another 2 attempts there through turn 7. McKinsey sending the move on car, enjoying the battle in there, and that gives Lauzon every opportunity to now creep back in. But as they make the way onto the oval banking and down towards turn number 9, in towards the bus stop chicane, well, Jason Landry here holding the lead in towards the chicane and coming on down towards the braking zone. Well, he heads in there very comfortably with the advantage of James Logsdon behind. But you'll have to excuse us for a brief moment, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to need to cut away due to a technical issue we spotted, and we'll be back very shortly to continue the racing. And as we return, ladies and gentlemen, technical issues averted, and we do apologise for that. The racing continues as our drivers make their way on around here on what is for them, and they're now 10th lap and shortly coming to the 11th lap. We're at the halfway point of the race, and as they come on down towards turn number 1, very appropriate there from RR Sephiroth to say we should call this a rain delay, and you could argue it's that. And speaking of delays, well, of course, we were expecting rain to be coming to iRacing sometime soon, but it's not coming until at least the autumn now, based on the latest iRacing update from the developers. But still, that's in the future, and we're here in the now as Logsdon and Landry battle their way into turn number 1. But of course, we are waiting for the majority of the pit stops still to come. We've seen some early picks from drivers, particularly in the AM and also the Pram classes, as they make their way on through, but nobody opting yet in the top 13. In fact, sorry, we should say inside the top 10 in order to go for a pit stop. We did have our 13th place driver when Ballard decided to come in quite recently, but as more and more make their way through turn number 1 and 2 to 4, we can see that Logan McKenzie here find himself now gradually ascending his way back up through the pack and looking to gain a bit more momentum. He's got Jay DeVries behind, and will DeVries win the battle for what is a top 3 in the Southern State Cup in the Prime class. So for him right now, every point is absolutely pivotal. Meanwhile, for Logan McKenzie as well, he'll want to try and gain that pack. He's one of the outsiders who could creep into the top 5 and indeed the top 3 as he makes his way up towards turn number 7 once again, but charging his way into left-hander here and making his way out onto the bank. You can see behind Aaron Law going on through with McKenzie going a bit deep. McKenzie getting a little bit greedy there with the track limits, and therefore I think just having to resettle the car. But we have had an instant for Billman DaCosta and another driver, but it's fallen victim to the horseshoe hairpin as he's gone on around there in the Bear Pope 0283 machine. And as he powers his way up towards turn number 6, he will not be forgetting that for a hurry, and indeed he's not going to be alone in that, as we can confirm we have had one retirement, and that was in the form of Dylan Valinga, who we saw earlier on in an incident in the infield. And well, our first retirement of our 25 drivers, and hopefully we don't see another retirement, because nobody does want to see drivers retire. Unfortunately, Valinga ends his championship in that regard. But as we continue to watch here, DaCosta making his way into turn number 7, we're heading on for an upwards to turn 8 banking very shortly. We look from him back up to the second pack of drivers in the race, the battle from essentially what is P7 down to P12, and that is going from Aaron Law to James Carr, in fact to P11 we should say. And I do believe that John Butler, further 3 seconds back, not quite in this hunt at the moment. You'll see Butler in the rear of the picture very shortly. There he is, but you can see as they head down towards the turn number 1 here, long way to go. Aaron Law carrying all the momentum as he does on the low line, and meanwhile McKenzie going high. They come into the opening quarter very shortly, and it does look as though McKenzie is very adventurous on those brakes, but every so often he does venture a little bit too deep. But this time as he goes around, it's a nice run. Lars going to be on the inside, and McKenzie tries to carry all the momentum here through 2-3. Gets chopped off a little bit there on the apex of 2, but he's able to assert his position into 4, and onto the brakes he goes into the right-hander in the 104 car. And Aaron Law, a little bit of a contact there, and Aaron Law goes round. It's the smallest tap. They all part the seas behind, and McKenzie carries on. I don't think he can just stop her weight there, unfortunately, given the fact he's on the racing line. And as James Carr evades, well, he drops a little bit away from DeVries, and now it's John Butler who closes up. Meanwhile, Aaron Law builds up the speed once again, and he's got Edward Offra taking a look here, and Offra yet to pit, and Aaron Law yet to pit as well, so they've lost a bit of time, as Aaron Law in particular, as he heads up towards turn number 6. As he comes up towards the next hairpin. Meanwhile, we look to drivers who have pitted, and here is Mark Senegal, who's chased after Dan Vinchuk, and they've got Samuel Bernardi behind them. And well, of course, for these guys, they're battling for what is effectively the AM class win, given that Glenn Bratton, meanwhile, has yet to pit, and he is your AM class leader by 5 seconds over this group. And as they make the way on around right now, well, we talked about Samuel Bernardi being a long way off earlier, and in fact, he's caught his way right up to this top group. So for Bernardi, this is looking very strong, as Fernando Takahashi, who has pitted, is still the best part of almost 20 seconds off of this group. In fact, as we do the maths, he is currently at 19 seconds off this group. So for Takahashi, it's all looking doom and gloom unless he can find a way back in. But I think he's just got to keep his head down and hope the guys in front have a bit of an instant. It cost him a lot of time, but it is Dan Vitcher who currently leads in the YAM class effective as he makes his way on through here with the strategy playing out. As he heads on towards the turn 8 bank. Meanwhile, we look from him back to the race leaders here, and these are the pro and overall leaders of Landry, albeit it'll be James Logsdon very shortly, as Logsdon gets a nose ahead as they head up towards the timeline. They've still got a pit stop to go of these guys, and they'll be thinking out when they're going to pull it, but of course nobody wants to react yet, because whoever pits first may be giving away their fuel state versus the other drivers, so they're all going to try and push one another as long as possible. Alternatively, alternatively, if you go for the undercut, where do you fit into the field? That's also the challenge here as they come on through turn 1 into 2. Well, Francois Shink definitely getting the elbows out there versus Dibble, albeit figuratively at the moment. There's not too much contact between them, but you can imagine if Francois Shink is able to gain a couple of places here, he'll be keeping Dibble comfortably at bay. And of course, with Aaron Lahr having that instant earlier on, it does mean that Francois Shink right now is on course to become your runner-up in the Pro Oval Drivers Championship. And well, that will absolutely be a huge boom to the number 18 driver's efforts over the course of the season. But as we see Dibble and Alvarez just behind him, Alberto Alvarez meanwhile willing his course to be taking the Summer State Cup crown in the Pro-Am class here today, given the absence of Millen Harris, but also the fact that running in P5, he's going to gain the points in order to be able to leapfrog Harris come the end of it. As he makes his way down towards turn number 7. Meanwhile, behind, we look to Vries versus McKinsey. McKinsey trying to make further ground on the outside there versus Jay De Vries, and the reverse grid racing driver tucks in behind. He can't quite find the momentum up into 7, but McKinsey has a habit of really going deep into turn 7, but this time he doesn't. He stays the course and follows through up onto turn number 8, and as he makes his way around onto the bank, coming through with a long left-hander he goes, and will behind Jordan Butler a little bit further off of this battle, 1.5 seconds, and still waiting and watching in the wings as they head down towards turn number 9. But as they do, meanwhile, looking further back here in the battle for the AM class lead effective, we see Samuel Bernardi find himself between Senegal and Victor, with Victor losing 2 places in the run to turn number 1, and as Mark Senegal holds on to that lead with Bernardi P2, and then it will be Victor P3. Their places overall circuit currently 16th through to 18th as they make the way into left-hander for turn number 7, and coming on through. And the change here will be for Bernardi to pick the right time to try and pounce on Senegal come the end of the race, given the fact they pitted quite early, so they will have the fuel tanks to go to the end, albeit it depends on how much fuel saving they have put into that fuel tank load in terms of the calculations they come on down. Meanwhile, we look from them back towards the leaders here and look into them as they're on the opposite side of the circuit currently. Still another lap without pitting. Landry logs the battle away into turn number 1, and as they come on through, Landry on the outside line turns it in nice and early to keep himself going to the dirt and dust on the outside, but he will lose a little bit of momentum. It's natural on the outside line, you turn it for a greater circumference, but as he heads down towards turn number 4, we can see Dibble on the outside here. Landry defends quite deep on the inside. Francois Shink jumps into the space created by Landry alongside Dibble, so Francois Shink again really insistent on being in that P3 position in this group, but Dibble getting the better exit out of 4, and meanwhile Alvarez just tucks in behind as Mika Hendricks falls back to 5 seconds off in P6. We see him then briefly in the rear of the camera shot as they make the way up towards turn number 6. Meanwhile, Jordan Butler's been and exited the pit lane. He's making his way on out at the moment as we look to Butler heading in towards turn 1 via the pit lane exit. Well, where's he going to fit into the field? I believe he's going to have one driver around him, and that will be Adam Ballard, who you can see that on the left-hand side rear of your picture as they make the way on towards turn number 4. It's going to be close between the two of them, but Jordan Butler will be ahead on pit exit and into the braking zone, and I think Ballard will be grateful here. He's got somebody to work with for the next portion of the race, and these two will do their utmost, I think, to work together for a mutual goal and then battle right at the end for overall position. Keep in mind, of course, with the fact that drivers only score an overall position, that does encourage pros, primes and AMs to all battle one another as well as their peers within their respective classes. As we talk a little bit about the inter-class battling, we now look at the in-class battling of Victor versus Bernardi, and these two still nose to tail as they make the way up towards turn number 6 and onto the brakes here very shortly. Victor will not be able to close up too much this time around, and interestingly for Victor here, will stay in behind Bernardi. We're wondering whether he could potentially make the jump back into that P2 position, but look at Mark Senegal by comparison. Senegal now almost 2 seconds clear of Bernardi, and I wonder if Bernardi's perhaps struggling a little bit here to balance the pace of the car and also use fuel. Has he got enough fuel, or is he having to fuel save here more and more, and would he be better to let Victor go, because it does look as though Senegal does have a natural advantage. But meanwhile, now we're going to see who crafts out an advantage in the pits as Landry and Shink are both into the pits of the top 4 pack. Well, this is going to be their scheduled stop as they make the way underneath the spotlight, and well, as Alberto Alvarez carries his way on around, it's now battling right at the front between Dibble and Logston. Dibble on the outside, it's the 2 pros battling with the prime leader behind them as they make the way through turn 3. Now their battling is going to prove ever more costly, because with Shink and Landry in the pit lane all the time that these guys battle is every 10th and second they're going to cost one another versus Shink and Landry in that overall expectation temptation when they all come out the pit lane, and where will they all fit back together? It's almost as if you've taken the jigsaw puzzle, put it together, broken all the pieces up once again, shuffled around the box, then seen how they fit back together afterwards. And I can tell you right now that we're seeing the complex nature of these strategies starting to fit in the fact that it does look as though this top three feel confident they can go extremely long in this race. The same for Hendricks and Lowes on behind, and also McKinsey, Carr, De Vries, Onofre and Aaron Lahr. So the top 10 yet to pit, but meanwhile it is Francois Shink who's come out of the head of all the drivers who've stopped once at least, with Landry a whole second behind, albeit Landry in the tow, so he won't be too concerned about that. And then it is Jordan Butler who is a further 13.5 seconds behind, and he's got a way to go, albeit he's got Ballard with him, and therefore I think they will fit in behind well. The leaders who are still yet to pit will essentially come into in terms of the space. But as we see Shink here on the lead right now, well, his head will be down. He'll be hoping he can bring home that win in order to definitely secure the P2 in the Pro Class, the overall Drivers' Championship come the end of it. Landry, of course, Championship winner, and well, even if he finishes P2, he'll be taking on home the Southern State Pro Cup as well. So for Landry, it's all about pride on the line if he wants to make it another win, but he doesn't need a win in order to achieve his ultimate ambitions. Meanwhile, we look here to three drivers making their way on down, and that is coming out the pit lane. Glenn Bratton with Samuel Cran ahead of Jack Davis, as Davis looks up the inside for Rockefeller Racing White. The Barefoot Racing driver Cran, that sees him coming, leaves the door open, then stamps the throttle down on Apex and says, well, you can go for that space, but I'm just going to simply outpower you to the next corner. And I think Davis in the end just had to watch and wait for the next opportunity, but good position there from the 160 driver Cran, just to simply now the throttle. But meanwhile, as he makes his way down to turn 6, we've got three drivers making the way down pit lane, and that is Dibble, followed by Logston and Alvarez all together, as they make their way to their respective pit box. We've also got Hendricks, McKinsey, Lowes on car, and also De Vries coming in. I suspect that Onofre is going to be coming in very shortly. Indeed, he does. And also Aaron Lahr. So our final 10 drivers yet to pit, all coming in. We've also got Billman DaCosta, in fact, who's yet to pit, as we do see our drivers making their way to their respective pit boxes. And, well, as they start to make the way back on out, it's going to be James Logston who leads as he exits the pit lane. Meanwhile, heading down towards turn number 1, it's going to be Shink and Landry. So these two together, and I think they're going to come out some way behind Logston and company, as in fact they make their way on through. And there's James Logston at the bottom of your picture. Then goes Dibble, then Alvarez, and Shink and Landry come onto the back of the top 3 here. So pitching early was not the right call, and instead the top 3, by going for the overcut, they've made it work. Meanwhile, behind we can see that Mika Hendricks comes out in clear space. In P6, a very lonely Mika Hendricks, it must be said, with John Lowes on, also a bit of loneliness in P7, albeit it's only 2 seconds to Jordan Butler behind, and Butler right now dragging Adam Ballard upwards inside the top 10, as they're P8 and P9 respectively overall, and making their way down to turn at number 6, as they charge away and through it. In fact, John Lowes off a slow run off of turn 4, he's actually given the opportunity for Butler, Ballard and McKinsey to close up, so McKinsey making a lot of ground in terms of recovery from being a long way down the order in the opening stage of the race. McKinsey now P10, as we hear that Billman DaCosta has left his pit box and onto pit exit very gradually now. I think he'll drop down to P22. Meanwhile, got a car around, that's James Carr, who's looking the wrong way, coming out of what is turn at number 6, and the privateer there, well, it's gone so very, very wrong, and James Carr falling foul of the hairpins twice today as he turns the car around, as to wait for the field to come back on to the circuit, and as he makes his way down towards turn number 7, I think he'll be absolutely fuming, because it has not worked out the way he's wanted it to go, not at all. But as he makes his way into turn 7, meanwhile, we'll look back to your leader here, and he's made it work on strategy, he's made it work on the opening stint, pack racing, and also managing the fuel. It's all coming together, and James Logston sits 1 second clear of Tanner Dibble, but look at that gap to Dibble. Originally 1.1 seconds on the exit of the bus stop chicane, it's already down to 9/10 as they reach the midpoint of the turn 12 bank, and that goes to show you how gradually that toe starts to come into effect. But when it does, the effects are compounded as every 10th is brought on down, and now as they make their way towards turn number 1, he's not even at the start finish line yet. He's going to see that gap absolutely ripped away from him and down to about 4/10 under braking into the opening corner. As he heads in towards the braking zone here behind, we can see Alvarez versus Shink and Landry. Alvarez, of course, battling to be on the overall podium, something that we've rarely seen from a Pro-Am driver all season, but when they can grab it, they grab it with O+, because it's a huge ball of points. Goes a bit deep there at turn 1, however, and lets Shink and Landry back on throw, as Landry gains all the momentum he needs to try and mount an attack on the outside into Horseshoe versus Shink. Shink defends the inside, and will Landry's going to go for the cutback here. Little bit of a wobble there from Shink, and now Landry over the back room as we jump on board with Alberto Alvarez. We get to see the perspective of the 167 car as he makes his way into turn number 6. And heading down towards the braking zone here. All into the braking zone it will be in terms of potential moves. Landry very hot there, and so is Shink. Meanwhile, Alvarez being very conservative with his approach. I think Alvarez expecting that the two pros may yet take one over off circuit and trying to play it smart and wise. But also Alvarez here with this P6, the P5 finish. He does not need to worry about losing out in what is that runner-up spot in the Pro-Am overall championship. And this will be more than enough to guarantee he takes home the Pro-Am Southern State Cup. As Landry then gets the better exit of a 7 into 8, and he takes the inside and moves up to P3 in the Pro class and overall. But as they power their way down towards the bus of chicane, well, Francois Shink will be looking to come back at the right time of asking as they head on through. And meanwhile, we look further back to what is John Lauzon versus Jordan Butler. They are hunting down Mika Hendricks. The gap now 7/10 by the time they get to the clearing of the turn 8 bank, and we can see also Logan McKenzie and Adam Ballard there at the back of the group. So McKenzie gaining some more ground, moving up to P2 in the class, and meanwhile Lauzon with what is Butler looking around the outside as they are hidden briefly by the billboards, but we can see them from an alternative camera angle here as they make their way to the bus stop chicane on the brakes. Lauzon goes defensive, and well, Butler simply backs off and decides to carry the momentum through. Again, Lauzon to go defensive early. Will Lauzon in return will have the toe of what is that Mika Hendricks in front as they head on to the turn 12 bank and charge it away on around. Meanwhile, we look back to the AM class here, and it's Daniel Bernardi versus what is Dan Victor, with Mark Senegal now 4.5 seconds clear of the pair. Well, I think Mark Senegal was just found at some ultimate pace around here, and also I think he's also picked up the toe of Aaron Law in front of him. So for Bernardi and Victor, they're battling effectively for P2 in the AM class, but Bernardi, that's all he needs to finish in order to take home what is the AM Drivers' Championship overall, and also what is the AM Southern State Cup. So for the MOP Swift driver, it's all coming together nicely as he makes his way down towards turn number 1 shortly, and as he does, 8 more minutes to go here as we look to your AM leader, and it's the Sunday GT Turtles driver Mark Senegal, the Canadian, ahead of Aaron Law as he breaks his way into turn number 1 and looking to carry on gaining places. But his next target will be Edwin Offre, who's 4 seconds up the road, and I think that may be a little bit too far for the Canadian to make the ground at this point in time. As he heads in towards turn 4, he's not going to give up there. If there's more points available, he'll take them gladly as he heads in towards the horseshoe hairpin. And further back, we do have a bit of a battle grind for what is P22, and it's Glenn Bratton at the head of this trio, ahead of Billman DaCosta, Ilias Speaker at the back of it. And as Billman DaCosta goes high here, they make their way towards turn number 1 gradually, as it is going to be 3 wide by the looks of things, or is it? As Ilias Speaker actually works with DaCosta, gives him a little bit of a tap. Meanwhile, dropping low there, that will be DaCosta who defends on the inside now, as he's going to expect Speaker to try and go high and wide. Meanwhile, Bratton just tucks in behind the pair of them, open the door up between them. Bratton does not choose to go through the middle. DaCosta defends on the inside, goes very early on the brakes, I think not being too comfortable. Bratton goes a bit deep, so DaCosta will get the place back in the AM class battle, but Ilias Speaker clears the 2 AM drivers to the Pro-Am as they make their way 2, 3 and up towards 4. But Billman DaCosta here holds the position nicely and makes the move count for P22 overall, P6 in the AM class, as he goes a bit deep there into turn number 4. But Glenn Bratton follows him, and I think now the two of them will just start to settle down. Although I say that, Bratton getting a nice exit initially out of 4 after the mistake that both of them made, but it's not enough to close up as they head towards turn 6. But meanwhile, speaking of drives, have cleared turn 6 and into the bus stop chicane. It's Jay DeVries here, who is P4 in the Pro-Am class, P11 overall. And as he makes his way out of the bus stop chicane, he has got Edwin Noffred tucked in behind. And will these two both battling for key points in the Southern State Cup in the midfield of the Pro-Am class, and also the overall Pro-Am Drivers' Championship. And as they come through turn number 12, it's DeVries. It's got a nice gap there of 4 tenths. It's gradually coming down, and Offred closing, but not significantly initially. Now he'll really start to close these within 3 tenths on the flat as they make their way up towards the start-finish line. 5 minutes remaining here for the drivers, and what that equates to in terms of laps at the moment, with a lap time of just over 2 minutes. We have got 3 more laps of racing to unfold here before the season concludes at Daytona International Speedway in Florida. And DeVries there goes a bit deep on the braking, but goes for a really nice late apex of DeVries, giving you an absolute article in how to take turn 1 at Daytona in the GR86 as he makes his way through 2, 3 and up towards 4. But meanwhile, as we look from one driver who's definitely in the zone to drivers who are battling to be in the lead in this tow zone, well, it is Tanner Dibble for DNA Motorsports, who right now in the number 69 car, he's got Logsdon for company, and well, Logsdon came out ahead if we do remember correctly, and now Logsdon's fallen behind Dibble. But this top 2, they do have a 2.5 second gap to P3 driver Alberto Alvarez in terms of P3 overall, and therefore they'll feel comfortable that they're racing for the win. between just the two of them now, and well, for Logsdon, he's got to plan out exactly when he wants to go for the final move, because of course not this lap that matters, it's not the next lap that matters, but it's the one after it, the third and final lap in those remaining, and that's where you want to be the leader come the finish line. So the checker flag will be awaiting you as they make the way in towards the bus stop chicane. Dibble holding comfortably on to that lead into the chicane. I think it's going to be Logsdon who looks for the good run off the corner, charges his way onto the bank here, and as Logsdon gets the momentum, well, we do jump aboard here with the number 42 car. We're up into 5th gear, right behind, a little bit of a tap there, still bump drafting. I think conscious of the fact he wants a bit more space between himself and Alvarez before he starts to go for a potential move. As they make the way on towards the flat, will he now take a look on the outside as he jumps up to 6th gear? No, it's still a little bit of bump tap there in terms of drafting along. So Logsdon here playing the let's work together game until that final lap, and then the gloves will be fully off as they make the way into the opening corner here. 2 laps to go, onto the brakes, and as they make the way to turn number 1, you see both drivers, but particularly Logsdon, having to fight with the steering wheel just to settle the car into the apex before releasing the steering into turns 2 and 3. And indeed these cars, they're light, only powered by 230 brake horsepower engines, but at the same time they are very sensitive, and therefore you have to make sure you've got full control of that steering wheel at all times. As he makes way for return corner, precise example there, a little bit of a wobble, a little bit of power oversteer on the corner apex, but he catches it well, does the Barefoot Racing driver, and stays comfortably close to Dibble. Now the gap between them and the rest of the field, 3.1 seconds. As they power the way down towards turn at number 6, and meanwhile Alvarez in P3, what he's trying to do, what only Logan McKenzie has been able to do previously in the Pro-Am class, and that is bring home an overall podium in P3 overall. And your Pro-Am leader for Pan Am Racing, he's got Landry and Shink right behind him, and Landry doing the right thing here, just staying in. He's going to be waiting for that opportunity on the oval banking to try and make the move. Meanwhile from them to a little bit further behind him, Logan McKenzie, 13 seconds off of the second pack from the leaders. He's in the third pack, and you can see here as they make the way into turn 7, where it is going to be Lauzon and Hendricks who are side by side into turn 7, just behind McKenzie and Butler. Well, they're fighting, that's going to cost them a bit of time as Hendricks starts to fall backwards in side by side with Ballard onto the bank, and there that's just going deep into turn 7. That's costing the speed he needs as he makes his way down towards turn number 9 towards the bus stop chicane. He'll let Ballard go and simply let the momentum come back to him on the exit of the chicane. Being patient here is Hendricks, I think looking for the opportunity come at that last lap, but as he makes his way on down the back straight, it's all battles inside the top 10 and just out of it. Meanwhile, outside the top 10 in terms of the major midfield, we haven't got too many more battles building between drives, although we do have Glenn Bratton versus Billman da Costa still playing out in the battle for P22, or it's P6 in the AM class. We will keep our eyes on that where we can as they make the way through the kink of 5 and down towards 6. But meanwhile, we look to the front of the field, and it's Tanner Dibble versus James Logsdon going on to the final lap here at Daytona. And well, both of these drivers are looking to pick up a win. James Logsdon looking to pick up his first win of the series, and as they make the way into the opening corner, it's a smooth run in for Dibble. He's got Logsdon close behind. We're right on board the gearbox here of Dibble as he looks to do everything he can to try and open up a gap before the exit onto the oval bank at turn number 8. And as they make the way onto the brakes here for turn at number 4, through the right hander they go, and no change at the moment. Logsdon still 3 tenths of close as they power the way up towards the turn 5 king. And well, what does Logsdon need to do here? He just needs to wait for the bus stop chicane and get the best possible exit. He does not want to be the leader until then. If you're Tanner Dibble right now, you could play a gamble, which is the lift off going onto the banking and see if you can let Logsdon come on through. Of course, Logsdon will be wary of that, and drivers are required to run a predefined racing pace as well, so they can't both just completely back off and bring it to a standstill, wait till one of them becomes frustrated from impatience. But as they make the way through turn number 7 here, Logsdon staying there, Dibble making his way onto the bank, the gap 2.5 tenths, they power the way through. You can see Alvarez in P3 still a little bit further back, holding off Landry and Shink in the rear of the group, and as they make the way onto the bank, the gap is now 3.5 seconds between Logsdon and Alvarez. This is where Logsdon has to go for it. He's got to think about the move as he takes off the camera of the rear of the car there of Dibble's machine, and as they make the way onwards towards the bus stop chicane, will Logsdon pushing Dibble along. The two pro drivers still working together, but it'll be the exit of the chicane where Logsdon will go all in for that final run, and can he get it as they make the way into turn number 9 and 10. Well, it looks though they're absolutely nailing the apex, and Logsdon by comparison also matching him perfectly. And as he exits the corner now, it's 3/10 of closing as they head on to the final corner. It's the final bang, it's the final turn of the season. And as they power all the way through, Dibble holds the lead. Logsdon's going to be made to go high. Dibble's not going to release that low line, or is he, as they head on? And it's going to be Logsdon who goes high. He heads towards the timing line here, onto the flat they both go. Logsdon's got his nose ahead now as he's got the overspeed. Can Dibble find a way back? I don't think so. I think it's going to be James Logsdon as he heads to the timing line. The checker flag waves, and it's going to be James Logsdon who takes the win here at Daytona in the season finale. His first win of the season out of Tanner Dibble. Jason Landry P2, and so P3 I should say, ahead of Alberto Alvarez, who loses out on the overall podium and the line, but takes the prime win for Pan Am Race ahead of Francois Shink P5, Mick Hendricks P6. Oh goodness me, it's coming together as they make their way to the timing line, and it's not going to quite be in the end. It will be Alan Ballard who takes P6, P2 in the prime class ahead of Mick Hendricks, Jordan Butler P8, John Lowes on P9, Logan McKenzie P10, the priority P3 in the prime class, Edwin Offer at P11 ahead of Jay DeVries P12, and then it will be Aaron Law ahead of Mark Senegal, with Mark Senegal P14 overall, taking your AM win for the final race of the season for Sunday GT Turtles. And then it'll be James Carr P15. They're going backwards across the finish line into the pit lane. I'm not quite sure how that's happened. Samuel Bernardi still to come on through. And Bernardi heading to line here, P16, that'll be P2 in the AM class, and with Fernando Takahashi just behind him, the middle of the pack Sif driver will be your AM Drivers Champion for the Cruising USA GR86 Championship for 2023, ahead of Fernando Takahashi, who gave it all, but an early spin across the middle of the pack Jedi driver, absolutely dear in the end. And then Dan Victor fell to P4, P18 overall in the AM class in the end, ahead of Samuel Cram P19 for Bareboat Racing, and it'll be Ilya Speaker P20 as he comes to the line and for it, and then it'll be Billman DaCosta, one of the last finishers here. He holds on to P5 in the AM class ahead of Glenn Bratton, and finishes P6 in class, P21, P22 between the pair of them, and it'll be Jack Davies who comes across the line, P23 for Rockefeller Racing White, ahead of Avon Dorsey, who will very shortly be your last finisher for this race, with a run retiree of Dylan Valinga, P25 but retired, and then Avon Dorsey crossing the line there, and what a brilliant race from start to finish, ladies and gentlemen. And will in the end, James Logsdon, I think he'll be absolutely pleased with the fact in the final race of the season he huffed, he puffed, and it all worked out in the end with all the effort that went into the Bareboat Racing driver, and I don't think he could quite believe it, bringing on home by 400ths in the end over Tanner Dibble, as Dibble there I think doing some donuts with what is Jordan Butler, and DNA Motorsports happy with their achievements, no question about it. And well, as we look to Samuel Bernardi, your AM champion for the season, the middle of the pack Sif driver, he had to fight hard all the way from start to finish, but the 212 driver in the end bringing it on home, and well, what an achievement. After everything, he was able to hold off Fernando Takahashi, and it was an early spin which put Fernando Takahashi on the back foot, but the middle of the pack Jedi driver got close, but it wasn't close enough as he comes down the back straight here on the cool down lap between the pair of them. But what a race to end the season, and well, with both drivers there, you can imagine now they'll be thinking about what lies ahead indeed in future series hosted by Middle of the Pack Racing. But as we do see Billman DaCosta as well, bringing home a solid P5 to wrap up his season in the M Class, P21. And well, we look from him to Jason Landry, who's doing donuts on the Daytona logo there. And well, you can understand why. He is your Pro Champion for 2023. And he is, of course, also your Southern State Cup Pro Champion as well. And the Sunday GT Turtles driver with that third place today. It wasn't a win, but he didn't need a win. He didn't need anything of the sort. Everything had essentially been determined in the Drivers' Championship beforehand. But that P3 giving him the Southern State Cup win as well. And absolutely pleased with that. As also I can see Jay DeVries there having a little bit of fun on the grass and making a spin, and one of his best results of the season for the reverse grid racing driver, P12 overall. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for the race results, and these are of course subject to any stewards' inquiries. So after 45 minutes of racing in the round 12 feature race here at Daytona International Speedway, to mark the conclusion of the middle of the pack Racing League Cruising USA GR86 Championship, as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing, James Logsdon took the win in the end by 400ths at the line for Bear Pope Racing, ahead of DNA Motorsports' Tanner Dibble. Jason Landry rounding off the overall and the pro podium there, P3 for Sunday GT Turtles, and that means he has taken the Southern State Cup, as we're to understand it, in the pro class, ahead of Alberto Alvarez, the Pan Am Racing driver, who, whilst he finished 4 seconds off the race winner, took the Pro Am win. Not quite a overall podium for him, but he won't be too concerned about that, because I do believe with that result as well, that will mean he is the Pro Am Southern State Cup champion, given Milan Harris not being able to make it today, and Alvarez absolutely flying on form here at Daytona. Francois Shink P5 ahead of Adam J. Ballard, and Francois Shink with that P5 bringing on home the runner-up spot in the Pro Overall Drivers' Championship, and Adam Ballard with one of his best performances of the season there, the Rockefeller Racing White driver P2 in the Prime Class, P6 overall. He'll be absolutely pleased with that one. Jordan Butler P7 for DNA Motorsports ahead of Beerbuzz Energy's John Lauzon, with Logan McKenzie at P9 there, the privateer, and then Edwin Offer, the MOP Jedi driver, bringing on home inside the top 10, P10 and P4 in the Prime Class behind Logan McKenzie, who round off the Prime podium. Jay DeVries P11 for Reverse Grid Racing, and was a solid way to end his season, ahead of Aaron Lahr, who had a difficult race with that early mistake, cost him ever so dear, and that means he will be your third place driver in the overall Pro Drivers' Championship. And Mark Senegal with the Amwin P13 for Sunday GT Turtles, another strong drive from the Canadian. And he'll be absolutely happy with that one, given the fact those points combined with what is Jason Landry's points will be enough for the team to be able to take the team's championship. And will Sunday GT Turtles have absolutely delivered from round to round. James D. Cart, P14 there, ahead of Samuel Bernardi. And then Fernando Takahashi, P16. Meaning it was an AM podium of Senegal, Bernardi and Takahashi. And Bernardi with that P15 or P2 in the AM class. The MOP Sith Jedi the MOP Sith driver, I should say, finishing ahead of the MOP Jedi driver of Takahashi in the AM Drivers' Championship overall. And Bernardi, of course, taking what was the AM Southern State Cup, as we're to understand it with that result. Dan Vitch at P17, the privateer, an unfortunate end when he was battling hard to be on the podium there in the AM class. And, well, still plenty of positives for Vitch to take into a future season, with Samuel Cram P18 for Bear Pope Racing. And as we continue our way down the finishing positions, Ilya Speaker and Billman DaCosta completing at the top 20 there, ahead of Glenn Bratton P21, and then Jack Davis and Avon Dorsey. The Rockefeller Racing White drivers having a difficult day of racing here at Daytona, not quite on the results they perhaps expected, with then Mika Hendricks being classified a lap down for Beerbuzz Energy. And I think that may have to do with the altercation between the drivers come the start-finish line, and also a little bit of shenanigans from Mika Hendricks post-race. So I'm not sure how he's going to fit in, because he did finish inside the top 10, but he has been classified as P24 a lap down on these final results. And then Dylan Valinga, the only retiree in this race for Reverse Grid Racing, retiring after lap number 6, retiring 15 laps in the end there, P25, a difficult end to his season. Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, that marks all of our racing, of course. And now, well, the only thing we can do before we wrap up is tell you how all the Cup and Championship standings have concluded. Well, we start off then with the Southern State Cup and in the Pro Class. And we can see here, after 4 rounds in the Southern States Cup, it is Jason Landry who has taken the win on 194 points to Francois Shink's 158. Landry really has been the force to be reckoned with throughout the season, and Francois Shink finishing in P2 there with the result today, earning him the right to finish ahead of Jordan Butler, and Butler and Shink going down to the line, and with Tanner Dibble finishing P4 ahead of James D. Carr. In the end, it would be result count back that would be the difference between James D. Carr and Carl Ranieri, the two of them ever so close, but with Ranieri not in attendance today, the result has gone James Carr's way, and then James Logsdon P7 ahead of Aaron Lahr with the win for James Logsdon, jumping up to P7 at the final measure, and then Jerome Bajelez and Mika Hendricks completing the top 10, with John Lauzon P11 and Matej Georgiou not competing in a round of the Southern State Cup. We then come to the Prime Southern State Cup classification, and Alberto Alvarez bringing on home the Cup, 28 points clear of Jay DeVries. Well done to Alberto Alvarez. And it must be said, he has been the one driver this season in the Prime class who has absolutely thrown everything at it. Indeed, all the drivers have. But for Alvarez, he has given it his all, and he has finally found the rewards as a result. He didn't quite bring home the Pro-Am Championship overall, but he has earned himself the Southern States Cup, and he'll be pleased with that. Jay DeVries P2 there with a late jump to P2, only 1 point ahead of Logan McKenzie, who with his own result moving up to P3. And we did say watch out for DeVries and McKenzie, and well, it goes to show it in terms of their performances today, which saw them jump ahead of Milan Harris, who was not in attendance, and then Edwin Offred completing the top 5 on 110 points. 2 behind him was Samuel Cran with Ilya Speaker P7, and then Jonathan Ballard, Donald Stepek and John Kroon completing the top 10, with best of the rest there Kirk Lane P11 on 52 points. Carlos Hathcock, Jermaine Warren and John Wilding and Zach Saunders not competing in a round of the Sun State Cup, all on 0 points. We then come on to the AM class, and well, to wrap up our 3 classes in the Cup, Samuel Bernardi there confirmed your Southern States Cup champion in the AM class by 16 points over Dan Vicchuk, with a further 11 points to Mark Senegal in P3. Congratulations to Samuel Bernardi. He really has absolutely flown high, albeit he has been kept honest by all of his peers all the way through. When it's come down to the fine margins, it's been Bernardi who has found the edge. Outside the top 3, Billman Acosta P4 on 92 points, just edging out Fernando Takahashi, with Glenn Bratton fishing outside the top 5, only on result countback on equal points to the 90 of Takahashi. And then Jack Davies, Avon Dorsey, Ian Hennevy and Dylan Valinga completing the top 10, with the results going the way of what was Jack Davis in the end in that battle for P7 between himself and Avon Dorsey, and then Auguste Blondel P11 on 26 points, best of the rest of Nick Bader and Jordan Hooks, with Albert Brand, Christopher Tarango, Dan Ocaranza, Dave Hernandez, Ines Usul and Matt Underkoffler not competing in a round of the Southern States Cup. So just to remind you who our Cup Championship winners are in terms of the Southern States Cup, ladies and gentlemen, in the Pro class, and give them all a round of applause, Jason Landry from Sunday GT Turtles in the number 5 car. In the Pro-Am class, Alberto Alvarez from Pan Am Racing in the 167, and then it's the 212 of Samuel Bernardi from middle of the pack Civ, who took the AM class win. But now we of course come from our Southern State Cup winners to our overall Drivers Championship winners and our Teams Championship winners, and we start off with the Pro class. And we can see here, after 12 rounds, of course, he was announced as the champion at the end of round number 11. But Jason Landry there with 493 points, bringing on home at the championship by almost 100 points clear of Francois Shink. And Shink in the end just jumping ahead of Aaron Lahr right at the end by 5 points to become the runner-up. Aaron Lahr P3, that on 393 points. And indeed, a credit to him for the battles all the way through. But Shink really finding that pace in the second half of the season and not dropping the score. Meanwhile, Tanner Dibble P4 there on 364 points, just edging out his teammate from DNA Motorsports, Jordan Butler, but the two coming alive in the second half of the season, and you can see how it's all come together for them. James Littleton P6 on 350 points with a win today, moving him into P6 right at the end. James Carr P7 with the unfortunate spin costing him dear, and then Carl Rennie, Mika Hendricks and Jerome Bajules completing the top 10, with best of the rest there John Lowes on P11 ahead of Matej Georgiou. And then we come on to the Pro-Am class, and we can see Logan McKenzie by 20 points, taking the class win in the end ahead of Alberto Alvarez, and will close between them all the way through the season. And it was, of course, going to go the way of Logan McKenzie after round 11 with drop scores coming into effect, meaning that Alvarez could not turn things around. But indeed, McKenzie was pushed all the way, the full distance, and Alvarez should take it to his credit in the fact that he kept McKenzie honest every round. Edwin Offred P3 on 293 points, very stealthily sneaking his way into P3, and a deserved P3 at that. 2 points clear of Samuel Cram, with Jonathan Ballard completing the top 5 there on 283 points, 30 clear at Don Cepek. Now it's Kirk Lane, Ilya Speaker, Milan Harris and Jay DeVries who completed the top 10, with best of the rest John Kroon and Carlos Hathcock completing the standings, and then Jermaine Warren, John Wilding and Zach Saunders not scoring any points over the season. And then we finally come on to the AM class standings, and we can see the confirmation, Samuel Bernardi in the end taking the class win by what was a grand total of 8 points over Fernando Takahashi. It was always going to be fine margins here today, but Bernardi found those margins early on by not having the spin that Takahashi had, and he made sure to keep it on the straight and narrow. Still, commiserations, but a well done to Takahashi for the battle all the way through, and did close between himself and Bernardi, with Mark Senegal second runner up there in P3 on 290 points. I think he'll be feeling as though perhaps some of the other results could have gone his way early in the season, and he could have been right up there in that battle to make it a three-way fight all the way to the end, but still holding on to the best of the rest status there inside the top 10, and on 290, 16 clear of Dan Vicchuk, with Ian Hennebury P5 there on 236, only ahead of Jack Davis based on result countback. Behind the 6th place driver Davis, Glenn Bratton P7, who held off Billman DaCosta to that P7 position. And then Avon Dorsey and Nick Bader completing the top 10. While Gus Bondall P11 ahead of Roger Ganesh. And then Dylan Valinga, Ines Usul, PG Christensen, Dan Ocaranza, Spencer Cockane, Dave Hernandez, Albert Brand, and Jordan Hooks completing the standings come the very end. But of course, we now do have our team standings, and we can see that after 12 rounds of racing, Sunday GT Turtles, your crowned champions there on 878 points. What was 99 points clear of Team Bear Pope, with Team Bear Pope the runners-up there ahead of DNA Motorsports and holding off DNA Motorsports after the late charge of the P3 team. Beaver Buzz Energy falling to P4 at the end, couldn't quite hold off DNA Motorsports in the hunt for that final spot on the Team's Championship podium, but still Beaver Buzz Energy really coming alive in the early stage of the season, and it was some mid-season difficulties which cost them dear. And in middle of the pack, Jedi P5 head of Rockefeller Racing White with Bear Pope 0 P7. And then Pan Am Racing, Rockefeller Racing Pink and MOP Stiff completing the top 10. Reverse Grid Racing jumping ahead of Hassholes Motorsports in the final round to finish P11. And Hassholes Motorsports there bringing up the rear, P12 and 180 points. So that means, just to remind you, our overall championship winners, ladies and gentlemen. And congratulations, a round of applause for our overall champions in the Drivers' Championship of Pro Class. The number 5 of Jason Landry from Sunday GT Turtles. In the Pro Am class, the 104, the privateer of Logan McKenzie. And in the Am class, the 212 of Samuel Bernardi from middle of the pack, Sif. And our team's championship winners, the trio of Jason Landry in the Pro class, Mark Senegal in the Am class, and Roger Ganesh in the Am class for Sunday GT Turtles, the team that was unstoppable from start to finish. And of course, with that, we do also have some other winners to celebrate, and that does include what is now our raffle prize winners, because we should remind you, and going into this season, there was a raffle prize open to all drivers who competed 10 or more rounds of racing. And you can see the 10 race raffle prize winner up there. And that was the 213 Adana Vichuk in the Am class. Congratulations to the privateer there for winning the raffle. And we also had, midway through the season, announced late on a 2-race donation raffle, which would be for each of the classes for all drivers who competed in 2 or more rounds of the racing. And when the Pro class, that went to the number 73 driver of Mika Hendricks and Bivaz Energy. In the Pro class, it went to the 160 of Samuel Cram from Team Bear Pope, and in the Am class, to add to already his championship crown, the 212 of Samuel Bernardi of MOP Civ. Congratulations to all of them. So let's give you a quick recap of all the prize winners from this season, because we have had multiple winners, and also see what they've all earned for their exploits. And we start off, of course, with Jason Landry, bringing on home what was $25 US and an invite to the 2023 Racer Champions event for finishing first in the overall Drivers' Championship in the Pro class, and also a further $10 combined for winning the Midwest Cup and also the Southern State Cup in the Pro class. Then comes to Logan McKenzie, the Pro Am driver, and he's brought himself on home $25 US and an invite to the 2023 Racer Champions event for being our overall Drivers' Champion in the Pro Am class, and also brought home at $10 US on top of that for winning the Big State Cup and the Midwest Cup in the Pro Am class. We then come to Samuel Bernardi, and well, he's had one of the biggest pulls of all, given the fact he brought on home at $25 United States for what was finishing first overall in the overall Drivers' Championship in the Am class, and also an invite to the 2023 Racer Champions event for that. And then he brought home $10 combined for winning the Big State Cup in the Am class, and the same in the Southern State Cup, and also for the winner of the 2-race donation raffle in the Am class, he picked up a further $5 US. Then we come on to our second set of prize winners here. We can see James Carr, the Pro driver there, in the number 17, for winning the Big State Cup earlier on in the season. He brought home at $5 US in the Pro class. And then we come to Alberto Alvarez in the 167, the Pro Am there, for winning the Southern State Cup, bringing home $5 US, and also an invite to the 2023 Racer Champions event for finishing second in the overall Drivers' Championship in the Pro Am class. Fernando Sakashi in the 223, the Am driver there, $5 US for winning the Midwest Cup in the mid-portion of the season in the Am class, and also for finishing second in the overall Am Drivers' Championship, an invite to the 2023 Racer Champions event. And then we can see Meek Hendricks in the 73, the Pro driver, winner of the 2-race donation raffle in the Pro class, bringing on home $5 US, ahead of Samuel Cran, the 160 driver there in the Pro Am class, winner of the 2-race donation raffle in the Pro Am class, and picking up $5 of his own. Dan Vichuk in the 213, the Am driver there, the winner of the 10-race raffle, he brings on home the prize of $40 US for competing in all, what was in the end all 12 rounds, if my memory serves me correctly. Indeed, his participation much appreciated. And then we come on to our final prize winners here, and these are all drivers who've brought themselves invites to the 2023 Racer Champions event. We started with Francois Shink for in the 18 car in the Pro class for finishing second in the overall Drivers' Championship, and Aaron Lai in the 47 car for his 3rd place finish in the Pro overall Drivers' Championship, bringing himself an invite to the 2023 Racer Champions event. We should also point out that After proceedings finished today, Jason Landry did offer to split his earnings, or his winnings, we should say, with both Francois Shink and Aaron Law. And, well, with that, we should keep in mind that as a result of the generosity of Jason Landry to his peers, and, well, in his own words, for enjoying the racing with them all the way through, in the end, $10 from Landry's pool did go to Francois Shink and 5 to Aaron Law. So that's very kind of Jason Landry. And then as we come on to our prime driver there of Edwin Offred in the 199, well, he's picked himself up an invite to the 2023 Racer Champions event for finishing third in the overall Prime Drivers Championship. And then Mark Senegal, the AM driver there, who in the end, in the 227, brought home third place in the AM Overall Drivers Championship. He's brought himself an invite to the 2023 at Racer Champions event as a result. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, congratulations once again to all of our prize winners all the way throughout the season. Indeed, congratulations to all of our drivers for the close-knit racing throughout the Toyota GR86. But it does mean now it is time for us to wrap up. Well, thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show and you want to know more about the Middle of the Pack Racing League community in terms of the series we run and what we do both on and off the real and virtual motorsporting circuit, then why not check us out on either our official Discord, invite link available there on screen. Alternatively, if you're more of a person who wants to go to a social media page, you can also go to our official Twitter, which is at twitter.com/MOP Racing. We can keep up to date with all the latest escapades of the MOP racing teams, both Sith and Jedi. But now, ladies and gentlemen, as we look ahead to the future, well, next time, there won't be another GR86 race next week, but we've still got plenty of action to come in the near future. And Middle of the Pack Racing League shall be back with an all-new series of racing action in the fall or the autumn of 2023. We're going to take a break for the summer, with the summer only being a couple of months away, but we will be back in due course, and, well, we'll let you know what's coming in the near future. And that's why you should follow us on our Twitter, alternatively join our Discord if you're interested in what's to come, because all information will be revealed there first and foremost in the portion of the 2023 summer. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, it has been a pleasure from myself in the commentary booth to bring you all the racing action from start to finish. For we have been the Middle of the Pack Racing League. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. This has been the Cruising USA GR86 Championship, as brought to you by the MPRL on iRacing for 2023. And, well, thank you all for tuning in from start to finish. Congratulations to our champions. And as we let you go, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, as we bring the weekend to a close as well, remember to stay on track. Good night.